Hello class, good day to everyone. Today my topic is all about etymology on meaning of ethics. This is your Professor Rodel Mendoza. Okay. So the term ethics class comes from the Greek word ethos, meaning custom or use in the works of Aristotle, while the term moral is the Latin equivalent, no? So based on the Greek and Latin etymology of the word ethics, ethics deals with morality, no? And when the Roman orator, Cicero, exclaimed, "O tempora o mores," Cicero, 1856, "Oh, what time and what morals," sabi niya. He may have been trying to express, dismay of the morality of his time. So, ethics is a moral philosophy, which is a branch of philosophy, which deals with moral standards and inquires about the rightness, or wrongness of human behavior, or tinatawag nating the goodness or badness, of personality o kaya trait o kaya character. It deals with ideas, with topics, such as moral standard or norms of morality, pwedeng konsensya, moral values and virtues. Yung ethics is a study of morality, of human acts and moral agents. Again, ethics is a study of morality of human acts or moral agents. It makes an obligatory, and what makes a person accountable. So ibig sabihin, if you have the moral acts, you are obliged and accountable person. And a moral is the adjective, describing a human act as such either ethically right or ethically wrong, or qualifying a person, personality, character as either ethically good or bad. Pwedeng ang ethics mo ay bad, pwedeng ang ethics mo ay good. So moral standards class or moral frameworks, or non-moral standards, talking about that in the next slide. Since ethics, is a study of moral standards, then the first question, for this subject, is what are moral standards? And the following actually are supposed to be an example of moral standards, like stealing is wrong, killing is wrong, telling lies is wrong, adultery is wrong, environment preservation is the right thing to do, pwedeng sa iba, sa akin, sa iyo, and freedom with responsibility is the right way. So giving what is due to others is also justice, and that is your ethically good behavior. So moral standards are norms or prescription that serves as the frameworks for determining what ought to be done, or what is right or wrong action, what is good or bad character. Okay? So, I'll be telling you something to classify as a moral standards. Do not lie. Huwag kang magsinungaling, huwag kang magnakaw, huwag kang mangopya sa classmates mo, huwag kang pumatay. These are actually moral standards. So, in English, do not lie, don't steal, don't cheat, or don't kill. And moral standards class are either consequences standards, like Stuart Mill's, utilitarianism, or yung tinatawag nating non-consequence standards, like Aristotle's virtue, Saint Thomas natural law, or the Immanuel Kant goodwill or sense of duty, or the salvation of the Lord Jesus Christ. And the consequences standards depend on results, outcome. It is an act that results in the general welfare, in the greatest good of the greatest number. The greatest number is moral. And to take part in a project that result in the improvement of the majority of people is therefore moral. no? And we are talking about the non-consequent standards, no, which are based on the natural law. No, the natural law is the law of our God, no, revealed through human reasons, no. He was manifested in flesh, no, to give us the salvation that we deserve, no, and to love us in spite of committing a lot of sins. No? It is the law of God, no, written in the hearts of men, no, to preserve human life, no, that is in accordance with the natural law. No, therefore, it is moral. So likewise, the non-consequent standard may also be based on goodwill or intention or a sense of duty. No, so we have the respect of for humanity, for example, no, treatment of the others, so as a human person, that is an act that is moral, no, or springs from a sense of duty, no, a sense of duty that you wish or will apply to all human persons. So on the other hand, the non-moral standards are social rules, no, o kaya yung mga demands of etiquette and good manners, and they are the guides of action, no, which should be followed as expected by society. So sometimes they may not be followed or some people may not follow them, no, but from time to time changes are made, no, regarding good manners or etiquette. So in sociology, we have non-moral standards, or what we call the rules, no, which are called folkways, no. In short, these are non-moral actions, no, which are those or moral categories that cannot be applied, no. Examples of the non-moral standards are rules of good manners, no, and right conduct. Etiquette, rules of behavior set by parents, set by professors, and standards of grammar or language, a standard of art, no, we have standard of sport set by other authorities. We have also examples which do not eat with your mouth open, di ba? The parents are always telling us, no, whenever we are eating and we tend to talk, no, and we could easily hear the sayings of our parents na do not eat with your mouth open, no. Observe rules of grammar, no, and do not wear socks that don't match, no. Imagine you are wearing socks and the other part it's red and the other part it's color black, no. In the activity phase, no, of this particular subject, no, we are going to determine which are non-moral standards. So, like no talking while your mouth is full, no, ito yung mga tinatawag nating non-moral standards. So, wear black or white for morning, never red, no. O kaya the male should be the one to propose for marriage, not females, no. Observe correct grammar when writing and speaking English. We also like there are also example like submit school requirements one time or on time. If you're a male, stay by the danger side roadside when walking with a female. O kaya go with the fashion you are not in. Okay? So again, non-moral standards are social rules, no? Ito yung mga social rules that I have mentioned, no? Okay? Ito rin, no? Okay, next we have a classification of the theories, no, of moral standards. So Garner and Rose, no, on the year 1967, they classified the various moral standards formulated by moral philosophers, no, which are as follows, no, consequence. So talking about consequenceless, this is teleological from tele, no, which means end, and result or the consequences, while the standard, no, states that it is an act that is right or wrong, no, depending on the consequences of the act. That is the good that is produced in the world, no. Will it do you good if you go to school, or if the answer is right because you learn how to read and write, no, then going to school is right. So we have the consequences standard, no, that can also be a basis for determining whether or not a rule is a right rule. So the consequences standard states, no, that the right use or wrongness of a rule depends on the consequences or the good that is produced in the following rule, no. So for instance, if everyone follows the rule of a game, no, everyone will enjoy playing the game. No, these good consequences proves the rule that must be a correct rule. No? Next, we also have not only consequence standard. So deontological ang tawag dyan. It holds that the rightness, no, or wrongness of an action or rule depends on the sense of duty. So we have natural law, virtue, and the demand of the situation or circumstances. No, and the rightness or wrongness of an action does not only depend or rely on the consequences of that action or following that rule. No, we have natural law and virtue ethics, no, that are deontological moral standards, because their basis for determining what is right or wrong does not depend on consequences, but on the natural law and virtue. No? And situation ethics also, which is deontological because the rightness or wrongness of an act depends on situation and circumstances. No? That the rightness or wrongness of an act depends on the situation demanding exception to rule. No? So Rosen and Garner are inclined to consider deontology, no, be it in a rule or act of deontology, as the better moral standards because it synthesizes or includes all the other theory of norms. So under this theory, the rightness or wrongness of an action depends on or is a part of the function of all the following consequences of an action or rule: what promotes one's greatest good or the greatest good of the greatest number. No, it could also be a consideration, no, other than consequences, like the obligatoriness or the act based on the natural law, or it is being one's duty, no, or it's by promoting an ideal virtue. So the ontology class also considers the object, no, purpose, and circumstances or situations of the moral issue or dilemma, and all these moral standards or ethical frameworks will be dealt with more in a detail, no, in other lessons. So what makes standard moral? No? So this question actually means what obliges us to follow a moral standard. No? For theists, believers in God's existence, so moral standards are commandments of God, no, revealed to man through the Lord Jesus Christ or the other prophets, no, the 12 apostles of Jesus Christ and the other prophets in the Old Testaments. No, according to the Old Testament, the Ten Commandments were revealed by God to Moses. No one who believes in God, no, bows to Him and obliges himself to follow the Ten Commandments. So for theists, God is the ultimate source of what is moral revealed to human persons because God is the salvation. No? The Lord our God is the ultimate salvation that is given us. The Lord Jesus Christ, through the blood of the Lord Jesus Christ, we have been saved. No, that is the essence of the moral standards, no, for those who believe in the Lord Jesus Christ. So how about the non-theists, yung mga hindi naniniwala sa Panginoon? So for non-theists, God is not the source of morality. So moral standards are based on the wisdom of sages, no, like Confucius, or philosophers like Immanuel Kant, no. Let's say in China, no, Confucius taught the moral standard. No, do not do unto others, no, what you like others to do unto you, no, and they persuaded people to follow this rule because it is the right way. So the gentleman's way. Later, we have Immanuel Kant, the German philosopher, now formulated a criterion for determining what makes a moral standard moral. Now, it is stated as follows: act only according to that maxim, no, whereby you can at the same time rule that it should become a universal law. No? So in other words, if a maxim or standard cannot pass this test, it cannot be a moral standard. So for instance, does the maxim stealing is wrong? Pass this test. So will that maxim be a universal maxim? So the answer is in the affirmative. So the opposite of the maxim would not be acceptable. Okay? Because moral standards are standards that we want to be followed, no, by all. No, otherwise, one would be wishing one's own ill fortune. So, can you wish do not kill? No, to be a universal maxim? The answer has to be yes, because if you say no, then you are not objecting to someone killing you. So that's the universal necessity of the maxim. What makes it a categorical imperative is what it makes obligatory. No? So stealing is wrong means one ought not to steal, and do not kill means one ought not to kill. If it is one's obligation, no, not to steal or kill, ultimately the obligation arises from the need or of self-preservation. No? Next, the origin of moral standard. So the theistic line, no, related to the question on what makes moral standard. Moral is how do moral standard, no, arise or come into existence. So a lot of new attempts, no, to explain the origins of morality or moral standards that have been made. So the deistic line of is thought states moral standards of divine origin, no, while the 20th century thinkers claim that they simply evolve. No? The issue is, are moral standards derived from God? No, they are actually questioning God because they are non-theists through the sign of revelation, or did they arise from the course of man's evolution? So with the divine source concept, no, moral standards are derived from the natural law, man's participation in the divine law, the moral principle do good and avoid evil, no, is an expression of natural law. So man's obliging himself to respect the life, no, liberty and property of his fellow men that arises from the God-given sacredness, no, spirituality and dignity of his fellow man. It arises from his faith, hope, and love of God and man. So with the evolutionary concept, the basics of moral standards, do good, avoid evil, have been observed, no, among primates and must have evolved as the process of evolution followed its course. So are these theist and non-theist evolutionary origin of moral standards reconcilable? So the evolutionist claims that altruism, no, a sense of morality, no, can be observed from man's fellow primates, no, the apes and the monkeys, and therefore it can be said that the altruism of human persons evolved from primates. So, however, the evolutionists cannot satisfactorily argue with factual evidence, no, that the rudiments of moral standards can be observed from the primates. So neither can it be scientifically established that the theist view that man's obliging himself to avoid evil, refrain from inflicting harm on his fellow man. It is a moral principle implanted by God in the hearts of men. No? But the concept of creation and evolution are not necessarily contradictory. No, the revelation of the norms of divine origin could have not been instant, like what is happening in one fell swoop. No, it could have happened gradually as man evolved to differ from the other primates. As the evolutionist claims, no, creation may be conceived, no, as a process of evolution. Hence, the biblical story of creation could have happened in billions of years instead of 6 days. They said that. No? Okay. Next, we have moral dilemmas. No? What does it mean by moral dilemmas? Okay, a moral dilemma, class, is a problem, no, in the decision making between two possible options, neither of which is absolutely acceptable, no, from an ethical perspective. It is also referred to as ethical dilemma. No? The Oxford Dictionary defines ethical dilemma as a decision making, no, problem between two possible moral imperatives, neither of which is unambiguously acceptable or preferable. It is sometimes called an ethical paradox in moral philosophy, like Oxford Dictionary. So, So based on this definition class, now moral dilemmas now have the following common. It's an agent required to do each of two or more actions which are morally unacceptable. So the agent can do each of the actions, but the agent cannot do both or all of the actions. The agent thus seems condemned to moral failure. No matter what she does, she will do something wrong or fail to do something that she ought to do. So this means that moral dilemmas are situations where two or more values or duties make demands on the decision maker. All right. So who can only honor one of them and thus will violate at least one important moral concern. So no matter what he or she decides to do, moral dilemmas present situations where there is a tension between moral values and duties that are more or less on equal footing. No? And the decision maker has to choose between a wrong or another wrong. The decision maker is a deadlock. So to have a genuine dilemma, one of the conflicting solutions should not override from the other. So for instance, the requirement to protect others from serious harm overrides the requirement to repay one's debts by returning a borrowed item when its owner so demands. So hence, in addition to the features mentioned, as I mentioned, genuine moral dilemma, it must also be a true that neither of the conflicting requirements is overridden, according to McConnell. This means that none of the conflicting requirements is solved by the other. The persons involved in the dilemma are in deadlock, and they find themselves in a damn if you do and damn if you don't situation. So another example of moral dilemma is the story in the Bible about King Herod. On his birthday, his stepdaughter, Salome, danced so well in front of him and the guests at his party, and he promised to give her anything she wanted. Salome consulted her mother about what she should wish for and decided to ask for the head of John the Baptist on a platter. The king now had a choice between honoring the promise to his stepdaughter or honoring the life of John the Baptist. And Herod chose to have John the Baptist beheaded. The king had inadvertently designed a moral trap for himself in a dilemma where whatever he decided to do would be morally wrong. Okay. Again, the meaning of moral dilemmas is are situations where two or more moral values or duties make demands on the decision maker who can only honor one of them and thus will violate at least one or important moral concern no matter what he or she decides to do. Next, false dilemma. So a false dilemma class is a situation where the decision maker has a moral duty to do one thing, but is tempted or under pressure to do something else. A false dilemma is a choice between a right and a wrong. For example, a lawyer or an accountant can face an opportunity to prioritize self-interest over the client's interest. So what to do when you face a moral dilemma? Ultimately, dilemmas are conflicts in the application of moral standards. So the question is, which moral standards must be followed? So in a state of emergency, for example, necessity demands no moral law, and you have to decide based on your best judgment or choose based on the principle of lesser evil or greater good or urgency. Yan tawag natin ganun. So let's have a key takeaways of our lesson for today. So non-moral standards originate from social rules and demands of etiquette and good manners. They are the guides of actions which should be followed as expected by society. So moral standards are based on the natural law, the consequences of one's actions and sense of duty. Next, moral standards are based on natural law, the law of God revealed through human reasons or the God written in the hearts of man. Moral standards are based on consequences standards that which lead to a good consequence or result, like the greatest good of the greatest number is what is moral. Moral standards are based also on a non-consequence standards or sense of duty that you wish would be followed by all. No? Respect for humanity, no treatment of the other as a human person. And an act that is moral, no, springs from a sense of duty or a sense of duty that you wish is wish, no, by all and applies to all human persons. So for theists, the origin of moral standard is God, and who wrote his law in the heart of every person, which is the natural law. And for non-theists, the origin of moral standard is the moral framework formulated by philosophers like Confucius, Immanuel Kant, Stuart Mill, etc. The evolutionist claims that the sense of moral standards must have evolved with man, not something that was implanted in every human person instantly at the moment of creation. A creation is a process may have taken place not only in 6 days, as the creationist claims, but in billion years of the evolutionist for non-theists. For the theists, believe in God strengthens them to be moral, a source of salvation, hope, and good life and blessings. All right, so I have right now the asynchronous activity to each one of you. Here are two questions. Letter A, can one eat while praying? Letter B, can one pray while eating? Which is a moral questions? Which is a non-moral questions? Number two, I did not dress appropriately formally for a formal party. Which did I fail to observe? Moral or non-moral standard? Number three, Lady B dressed indecently to expose her body. Why? Which did she violate? Moral or non-moral standard? Number four, what is a moral dilemma that you have experienced directly or vicariously from reading? Are you happy with how you addressed the moral dilemma you went through? Or do you agree with how the moral dilemma that you read was addressed? Write your reflections. And number five, do the divergent truths that would tell what a moral dilemma is. Explain your answers. So thank you for listening, class. God bless everyone.